How's it going? Rob here, beginning the next chapter 4. And one of my favorite chapters, because we're starting to talk about percents, which means we're going to start talking about money. And who doesn't like money? We're going to need to learn about money. It is super importante. And like I said before, 7th grade math is the most used math by adults. And you are going to love this lesson because it's so easy peasy and lemon squeezy. So let me show you how easy it is. We're going to convert fractions to decimals to percents to decimals to fractions. And it's super easy. Here's the directions for how to do it old school. And then new school would be using the technology. And this calculator makes everything easy. So I'll go over some old school stuff just for nostalgic purposes. But when you can use the calculator, you should use the calculator. So I'm going to do a few of these, and you are going to do the rest on your own. So here we go. We got a decimal. If I was to read this properly, it says 9/10. If I read it properly. Reading is succeeding. There was another lesson where I went over converting decimals to fractions by reading it. So that's 9/10. So I just wrote it as a fraction because I read it properly. Now, percents, and you should write this down, percent, if you break it down, is like each 100. Per is each. And a lot of the lessons I did before is per means divide. Cent, century, centimeter, it means 100. So if I was to change this to 100, I'd be, and I'm doing this old school right now. If I multiply this by 10 over 10, making equivalent fractions, my special one, I would get 90 over 100. And that's why if you got 9 out of 10 questions on a test correct, you got a 90%. 90 for each 100. Bada boom. Okay? And that's doing it old school. Let's do the same kind of problem new school. Let's take this decimal and make it a fraction. And you guys know how to do this because we've already done these things before. The only thing we didn't do before was percents. So what's one of our favorite buttons is the magic button. So I press my double arrow and I just made that into a fraction. The only thing is in middle school especially, we don't like to keep stuff improper. So you should change that to a mixed number, which would be this button right here, where anytime you want to change, you need to use a triangle. So here it is green. We're going to press green first, and you're going to see that it says change the fraction to a unit with a fraction, otherwise known as a mixed number. I'm going to press enter. It's going to say 2 2/5. I'm going to write it down, and I'm going to go to town. Okay, so I can leave that in the calculator and change it to a percent, or I can leave the 2.4 in the calculator and change it to a percent. You hear me saying change to a percent, so I need to find that button on the calculator. It's super easy. Change triangle percent right there. Right there. Change to percent. And I'm leaving this in the calculator because I don't feel like doing more work. So second right parenthesis, and it comes up. Change it to a percent. That's why this calculator is so cool. It tells you exactly what's going on. 240%. Did I do something wrong? 240% is weird. But I didn't do anything wrong. That's a thing. 240%. 2.4 times what you used to have. When you go to the grocery store, sometimes it says, 50% more shampoo. That would be 150% if it's 50% more. Just because not everything stops at 100. You can have over 100. Sometimes I give you guys extra credit on stuff. It's 110%. It's 10% more. So that's not weird. That's not wrong. That's real life. Okay, and then over here we have a fraction, and I want to change it to a decimal. Well, there's always more than one way to do things. Your favorite way is probably going to be pressing the magic button. So I get 0.625. And again, one of the other reasons why I like math is because you have options. You should also remember that this line means what? That means divide. And anytime you press divide, you're going to get a decimal. And there it is. And if I'm doing old school, I would do long division. And some of us should probably remember some of this. Top down, bottom out. The top goes down, the bottom goes out. And then this is going to take a while because 8 doesn't go into 5. I put the decimal down. I put a 0. And then 8 goes into 50 6 times. 8 times 6 is 48. And then I subtract, and I get 2. And then 8 doesn't go into 2 because I'm supposed to bring down another 0. 8 goes into 20. 2 times, I get 16. And then when I do 20 minus 16, I get 4. And I didn't speed up the video. I can really talk fast. So then, and then I put another 0 here, and I drop it down here, and 8 goes into 40 minus 5. And that's where I get to 0.625 because I got to bring the decimal up. And who wants to do that? Because it's way faster and better to do it on the calculator. But I just want to go over a little old school long division. So here we go. And we're going to change that to a percent. So if I want to change, I need a triangle. Second, right parentheses. Second, right parentheses. 62.5%. Now, old school way, when you change a decimal to a percent out of 100, you would multiply it by 100. You multiply this by 100, you would get 62.5, and then you write the percent sign because it is a percent. When you multiply by 100, you are also taking the decimal and moving it to the right 2 places. And that's how you get the percent. And all these directions are at the top of the page. The only thing that's not on this page right now is our calculator directions. All of our calculator directions are in our mega notes. Well, we're going to go back and write these directions down anyway, just to have them in more than one spot, because we got to learn from repetition sometimes. 0.4%. Boy, that looks weird. But that's real life too. You see percents like this on like medications, like creams, like the active ingredient is 0.4% of that bottle. So that must be some powerful stuff. If you actually use something like over 1%, it'd probably burn your face, that cream, you know. So these are real numbers. Just this is a percent. It's not a decimal. You follow me? Just because you see a decimal here doesn't mean I'm going to call this a decimal. This is a percent. It says percent. When I go to write this as a decimal, it's going to look different. Now, we haven't done this yet, so this is how you convert a decimal. Darn it. This is how you convert a percent to a decimal. I put it in the calculator. Make the calculator look exactly the way it looks on the paper. On the paper, it said 0.4%. So I'm going to find the percent sign, which is very conveniently located in the same area as the other stuff. It's second left parenthesis. My calculator looks exactly the same as this does, and all I have to do now is press enter. When I press enter, it changed it to a decimal. Old school, if you're going this way and you multiply by 100 in a table, and now you're going to go backwards in a table, that would be dividing by 100. When I do 0.4 divided by 100, I get 0.004. And then when you divide by 100, you move the decimal to the left 2 places. When I move this decimal to the left 2 places, I get 0.004. And when you read, you succeed. If I read this, this is 4 tenths, hundredths, thousandths. That's 4 thousandths. And if I was to use the calculator, my favorite is the magic button. But since I've used that so many times, I'm going to do it a different way, just to show you a different way. This is my change fractions and decimals button, which is second table. And that's going to change it to 1 over 250. Now, that's not what I got a second ago doing it by hand because I didn't take any extra time to reduce. And you should. You should always reduce. You should always reduce. So if you want to do less work, use your calculator. Use your calculator. And if you want to be right more often, use your calculator. Mrs. Roberts wants you to use your calculator. So you're going to do the rest of these on your own, but let's go back to this for a second. When I want to change a percent to a decimal, just enter the percent. And when you want to use when you want to do percent, it's second left parenthesis. second left parenthesis. Press enter. When I want to change the percent to a fraction, it is, let's see, did I change a percent to a fraction here? I could do the same thing and then press the magic button. Enter the percent and then press the magic button. When I want to change a decimal to a percent, you want to press the change to percent button, which is second right parenthesis. Same thing here. These are the same rules. Put the fraction in using n over d and do second right parenthesis. And when you want to change fractions to decimals or decimals to fractions, then you're just going to either make some magic happen or use your F to D button. And the F to D button is second table. And all of this stuff is written on the calculator page of the Mega Notes. Okay? Now we're going to do some stuff using our brains and estimating, because we don't always have a calculator handy. Let's say we're out to dinner and somebody says, "What's the tip?" This happens all the time. Somebody gets their phone out, has an app for that, right? Well, you don't even need to spend the time doing that. Let's learn some quick tips for estimating and finding tip and stuff. A lot of times when you go to a restaurant, you're going to tip somewhere between 10 and 20%. And especially now with COVID, I like to tip 20%. Give some love to your waiters, waitresses, food staff. So let's start by using the calculator to learn something from the calculator and then not use it at all again. 1% written as a decimal right there. 0.01. When you put that in the calculator, it turns out to be 2.58. What happened to the decimal? Here at the beginning, the decimal, even though you don't see it, is after the 8. And here when I'm done doing 1%, it's moved to the left 2 places. So that's a nice quick tip. When I want to do 1%, I just move the decimal left 2 places. Move the decimal left 2 places. Okay, 10%, otherwise known as 0.10 as a decimal, or 0.1, because if you don't, 0.10, 0.1, same deal. Takes 258, where the decimal is at the end, and moves it to the left 1 place. Move decimal left 1 place. When I say, "Can I have 50% of your chocolate bar?" I'm looking for 0.50 or 0.5, otherwise known as half. Multiply by half. A lot of you don't really think of it that way, though. You think of it as cutting it into 2 pieces. Cutting it into 2 pieces is dividing by 2. And this is a good lesson to learn. Multiplying by half and dividing by 2 is the same thing, because dividing by 2 is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal, 2 over 1. Check it, check it, check it. Multiplying by half is the same as dividing by 2. Okay, that's maybe an easier way to think about it. You better recognize this number. This number comes up pretty often. 0.67, 67%. Really close to 0.6 repeating. 0.6 repeating. 0.6 repeating is 2/3. Multiply by 2/3. These are shortcuts. Shortcuts. Multiply by 2/3. Otherwise known as 0.6 repeating. Okay, and that's close. That's not 0.67. That's a rounded version. So we're going to do some estimation. So that's an estimation. 0.75, otherwise known as 75%, 75 cents in a dollar. Well, that's 3 quarters. 3 quarters. All right, let's do some estimations. Using the shortcuts, find the percent of 340 for every single question. We'll find 1%. 1% of 340. I'm going to put down 340. I'm going to look back at my notes. My notes said that 1% is moving the decimal left 2 places. The decimal is at the end. I move it left 2 places. The answer is 3.4. It should be a small amount, right? 3.4 of 340 is 1%. 10%. Let's stick this down. 10% should be a bigger number than the last one, right? So 10% is when I move the decimal left 1 place. So that's 34. 5%. Did I put a rule up there for 5%? No, I didn't. But I gave you all the skills to do that. And I have taught you test-taking strategies. If you have a part A, B, C, D, E, F, then you are going to use a previous answer. I can use the previous answer for B. If 10% turns out to be 34, how does 5% compare? 5% is half of this, right? So what's half of 34? What's 34 divided by 2? That would be 17. And you see how I wrote a table? You see how I showed my work? You see how I showed my flow? Show me your flow, okay? Tell me which way to go. Tell me how you got there. Don't just write numbers on a page. All right? 20%. Well, let's use a previous answer. Let's use 10% again. And this is how I do tip. When I go to the restaurant and I want to do a tip, let's say we had a really wonderful $340 meal. Not the kind of money I normally spend on dinner. $340 meal, and a 10%, I figure that out first by moving the decimal left 1 place. So when I go to do my tip, all I do is, what is it? Yeah, that's double. So 34, shoot, that's a $68 tip. Ooh, that's a fancy meal, at least for me. $68 tip. I did a bunch of work. Let me box in the answer. And this is estimation. I'm not using the calculator. All right? I know I'm a huge calculator person, but sometimes we can do some stuff on our own. 200%. 200%. 100% of 340 is 340. So if I want 200%, I want 2 of, hopefully you're looking at me when I point to stuff, 2 of those. 2 of those would be 680. Now let's do a funky 13. I finish off with something more challenging. I don't want you using the calculator. I want you using the info we already have. How can I use what I already have to make a 13? I know. Do you too? 13 is my favorite. I use 10% and a few 1%. Don't reinvent the wheel. We already did it. 10% moves the decimal left 2 places. So that's 3.4, right? Oh no, 34. 10% was 34 and 1% was 3.4. And then we add it up and we get, let's see, 3, 3, and 3. 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That's 43. 43 added to 3.4s, which is 1.2. The 43 with the 1.2 turns out to be 44.2. Remember, I'm not using a calculator. We're exercising right now. Exercising our brains. Now, it says estimate. Estimate means I don't need an exact answer. I want 77% of 80. I could totally use this in the calculator, but I don't want to use the calculator. I want to estimate. Estimate means do something close. What's close to 77% that I can do easy things with? 75% is easier to do than 77%. 75%, we're exercising right now, is like doing 3/4, 3/4. If I cut 80 down into 3/4, what would I get? And a lot of us don't remember too much of the fraction stuff. It's on the first couple pages of the mega notes, by the way. 80 is over 1. You can multiply across, but Mrs. Roberts always simplifies before I multiply. So there are common factors here. 4 can go into itself once and go into 80 20 times, and 3 times 20 is 60. So where would the real answer be? If I did a lower percent, then this number is a little lower. So this 77% of 80 is going to be something a little bit higher than 60. It's a little bit greater than 60. Okay? If I'm going to estimate 23% of 90, there's a couple ways I could do it. I could estimate the 90 and change it, or estimate the 23%. You know what I'm going to do this time? I'm going to keep this 23%, and I'm going to change it to a number close to 90, like 100. Because when I do percents of 100, percent's already out of 100, isn't it? So that just means it's 23.